Welcome to Utkalp Digital Classes. I am your tutor Raghav Chaturvedi, and today we are going to talk about heat and temperature. The important topics from this unit include the temperature scales, thermal expansion, modes of heat transport, black body, Newton's law of cooling, calorimetry, kinetic theory of gases, thermodynamics, Carnot engine, and refrigerator. We begin our lecture by discussing the temperature scales. So there are three temperature scales in general: the Celsius scale, the Fahrenheit scale, and the Kelvin scale. First of all, temperature is a macroscopic physical quantity and it is related to the sense of hotness or coldness. You should also note that the natural flow of heat is from a higher temperature to a lower temperature. So basically, the temperature will determine the thermal state of the body, whether it can give heat or it can take heat. Okay, so note that this is analogous to your electrical circuit where the current was flowing from a higher voltage to a higher potential to a lower potential. Okay, the temperature scale is provided in front of you. Let me mark this as the equation number 1. This will be useful when either they ask you to convert the temperature from one scale to the other, or they have given you uh, some quantity in Fahrenheit and they ask you the answer in Kelvins or Celsius. Okay, so there are three scales. The most important one is the Kelvin temperature scale. Kelvin temperature scale will also be known as the thermodynamic scale, and it is the SI unit of temperature. There are the Celsius and Fahrenheit scales as well, and in order to convert it, I have a simple formula, which is a reading. Uh, the general thing is reading on any scale minus lower fixed point divided by upper fixed point minus the lower fixed point. Okay, so when I translate it to our equation number 1, I find that it is C minus 0 by 100 minus 0 is equal to F minus 32 by 212 minus 32 is equal to K minus 273.15 by 273.15 minus 373.15 minus 273.15. Okay, and let us look at a basic question on how to do this. Let's say I have to find 60 Fahrenheit and convert it to Celsius and Kelvin. So what do I have? I have C minus 0 by 100 minus 0 is equal to F minus 32 by 212 minus 32 is equal to K minus 273.15 minus 373.15 minus 273.15. Okay, with this you can easily write that C is equal to 15.15 and K is equal to 288.7 Kelvin. Okay, this form should be remembered. You can even write these down into simpler forms. For example, you can write that delta change in the Fahrenheit scale is equal to 9 by 5 times change in the Celsius scale. Okay, there are forms like these as well, but this is the most general form that I want you to remember because it's easier to even remember it in the paper. Okay, next thing that we are going to look at is thermal expansion. So when matter is heated without any change in its state, it usually tends to expand. Okay, so according to the atomic theory of matter, asymmetry in the potential energy curve is responsible for thermal expansion. As we uh, as we rise the temperature, the amplitude of vibration increases in the solid, and hence energy of atoms increase. So basically, what they are trying to say here is that when you're making a solid with atoms that are inside, you can assume that there are some springs that are connecting these. Okay, and because the atoms are vibrating, so the single atom can vibrate in all the directions with springs attached to it. So so what happens is, if you increase the temperature, then these vibrations that these atoms can take, it increases. Okay, and due to this, the matter as a whole tends to expand. Okay, so there are different coefficients that I will talk about. The first one is known as the uh, will describe the change in length. So the first one is for linear expansion. So if my uh, initial length is before heating is L naught, and after heating the length is L, then I have L is equal to L naught into 1 plus alpha delta theta, or delta theta, or sorry, delta, that implies delta L is equal to L naught into alpha delta theta. Okay, where delta theta is the change in temperature. Similarly, I can write this for an area is equal to A naught into 1 plus beta delta theta, and similarly I can write this for volume expansion case, V is equal to V naught into 1 plus gamma delta theta. You should also take a note of the relations between these. Beta is equal to 2 times alpha and gamma is equal to 3 times alpha. Okay, the rest of the quantities are already provided in front of you, so I want you to remember these 5 quantities from here. Okay, what this means is, initially your length is L naught. I'll just draw this again. So initially your length is L naught at temperature T. At a temperature T plus delta T, your length becomes L naught plus delta L. Okay. Similarly for area, you have initial area as A naught at a temperature T. After heating, it becomes A plus delta A. And what is delta A? Basically every length here, if this was the length, this was the length, so every length becomes L. Okay, this is a T plus delta T. Similarly is the case for the volume case. If I take a cube, then the every side of the cube will change form. Okay, one application of this is the time period of a simple pendulum. So what happens here, if you take a pendulum clock, okay, and we say that it keeps proper time at a temperature theta. I'll just zoom this into this and try to mark this equation. Okay, this is the equation number 6 that you should remember. So what this says is, let the pendulum clock keep a proper time at a temperature theta. Okay, theta means proper time. Okay, if we try to increase the temperature to some delta theta prime, okay, as I increase the temperature, it becomes theta prime. Then due to the linear expansion, the length of the pendulum will increase. Okay, and as we know that uh, the time period depends on the length of the length of the string. That is why I can easily write that my change in time period divided by the initial time period is equal to half into alpha into delta theta. Okay, it is due to simple relations that are there using the formula. Okay, you should also take this into consideration because questions have been asked from this before. Okay, so sometimes the question will be dealt in this form that a clock so I'll just try to tell you what the forms are. First form is when the clock will lose time. Clock losing times means that theta prime is greater than theta. Okay, and if they say that the clock gains time, that implies theta is greater than theta prime. Okay, so you should know this terminology properly. This the first one is for losing time. The second is for gaining time. So let's try to solve this question. Two rods A and B of identical dimensions are at a temperature 30 degrees Celsius. If A is heated up to 180 degrees Celsius and B up to T degrees Celsius, then the new lengths are the same. If the ratio of the coefficient of linear expansions of A and B are 4:3, then the value of T is given by what? So first of all, they've told you that change in length in both the rods are the same. That implies delta L1 is equal to delta L2. Now, what is delta L1 given by? It's given by L into alpha 1 into change in the temperature in 1, L into alpha 2 into change in temperature in 2. Okay. From here I can write that alpha 1 by alpha 2 is nothing but delta theta 1 by delta theta 2. Okay. Because alpha 1 by alpha 2 is now given by 4/3 in the question. So I can write 4/3 is equal to theta minus 30 by 180 minus theta. Okay. Sorry, 180 minus 30, which gives me that theta or temperature is nothing but 230 degrees Celsius. In the next section, we talk about the modes of heat transport. So heat is a form of energy and it transfers from a body at a higher temperature to a body at a lower temperature. So this can take place through three processes. One is through conduction, another is through convection, the third one is through convection. So the conduction is a process in which the material will take an active part by molecular action and the energy is passed from one particle to the another. Okay, and mostly this will happen in solids. When I take the case of convection, so in the convection there is a transfer of energy by actual motion of particles of the medium from one place to the other, and it is known as convection, and it's basically found in liquids and gases. So it's found in liquids and gases. Okay, the third one is radiation. You should know that this is the quickest way of transmission of heat. Okay, here the heat is transferred from one place to another without affecting the intervening medium. So this does not require medium. Okay, so let's quickly look at each of these separately. So we'll start with the thermal conduction. So as I said before, thermal conduction is the process by which heat is transferred from one hot part of the body to the cold part through the transfer of energy from one particle to another particle of the body without the actual movement of the particles. So what this means is, if I have, for example, a string of solids and we imagine that each are joined together by some potential, okay, attracting potential. Let's say it's a spring because you're looking at vibrations. So what happens is you give this particle some heat, some extra energy, it will start to vibrate and it will pass on that energy to the second particle. Okay, it will start to vibrate and it will pass the energy to the third particle, and that is how, although they are just moving a small distance between this and this vibrating here, but the energy is being passed to the other particles. So here I've just shown you material and what are the things. Let's consider this thing to be a slab, okay, of the face area A. The lateral thickness is L, and the faces have a temperature TH and TC. So you have hot temperature and you have the colder temperature. Okay. Now through experiment it was shown that the amount of heat crossing the area A of the slab at position X in time t is given by Q by T. The Q is the heat, so Q by T is equal to minus Ka into dt by dx, where K is a constant which depends on the material of the slab, and we also call it the conductivity of the material. Note also that dt by dx is nothing but the temperature gradient. Okay, I can even write this for the entire body as Q by T is equal to Ka into Th by T minus Tc by L. So I'll just, you should make a note of both of these equations. These are quite useful. One another thing that you should note is the concept of steady state. So if the temperature of a cross section, let this be your cross section. Okay, so if the temperature of the cross section at any point in the slab remains constant with time, okay, you should remember that it does not vary with the position x. Okay, then the slab is said to be in a steady state. Note that steady state is different from thermal equilibrium. Okay, in thermal equilibrium, what will happen is the temperature at any position in the solid will be the same. So if this is my solid, this is my material. In thermal equilibrium, everything will have the same temperature. But in steady state, what will happen is uh, if I take any cross section, then the temperature of any point x, or the temperature any on any point in this cross section, okay, it remains constant with time. It does not change. Okay, so steady state and uh, thermal equilibrium are different quantities. Okay, uh, what do you mean by steady state in a conductor? In a steady state, there will be no absorption or emission of heat at any cross section. So basically the heat flowing into a cross section, let this be my cross section of the slab. So heat coming into the slab will be equal to the heat going out, so out of the slab. So the net temperature of this does not increase or decrease. Okay. You have this simple formula, and we'll be using this formula to do several questions. Uh, let's talk about what happens to the equivalent conductivity for heat flow through the slabs in series and parallel. Okay, so first of all, you should know that the thermal conductivity, which I defined as K, it depends on the nature of the material. Okay, for Ag, you should make a small note that for Ag it's higher than for Cu, then Au, and then aluminium. Okay, and for an ideal conductor, you will have that value of K is infinity. Ideal For ideal conductor, I have that K is equal to infinity. Okay, and for a bad conductor or an insulator, conductivity is equal to 0. Okay, now let me come back for before telling you about this. Let's look at this equation once again. You have Q by T is equal to minus K A into dt by dx. Okay, the heat flow equation. But if you note this equation properly, uh, you may find that this is similar to the flow of current in a current carrying conductor. How is that so? Uh, my value Q by T, okay, which is heat flowing, Q is the heat flowing per unit time, can be analogous to, not same, but analogous to I is equal to, note first dt by dx is what? It's similar to the potential gradient. Okay, so it is similar to v, net potential difference, divided by some length l into a into k. Okay, note that there is a negative sign attached here. Okay, so you have this thing, and what does this mean? We know that v is equal to ir. Okay, so v is equal to I into l by a divided by k. Okay, so we already know uh, what this really means. We know that this is equal to I into rho l by a. So that implies my resistivity, or my analogous resistivity, is equal to 1 by my k. Now that you know that this is analogous to your current flowing through a wire, so you can always easily remember this as the current. This has the potential, and the potential divided by length, and whatever else is, it's basically 1 by resistivity into area. Okay, with this in mind, now we talk about uh, equivalent conductivity for heat flow through slabs in series. So when you attach two slabs in series and this is at the temperature T1, the other end is at the temperature T2. So in order to find the conductivity, you can easily write down the resistances. Okay, so the equivalent resistance is R1 plus R2. Okay, and that implies that L1 plus L2 by K equilibrium A is equal to L1 by K1A plus L2 by K2A. Okay, so this is the resistance, and using the form that R is equal to rho into L by A, rho is equal to 1 by K. Okay, 1 by K L by A, you can easily find that uh, the K's will add like this. Okay, similarly, when first of all I should make a note that you should remember this. These are often asked in the paper. Okay, this is equivalent to two resistance in series. Similarly, what about, this is just writing the above thing down again. So you have equivalent thermal conductivity for flow of heat through a slabs in parallel, and you attach them in parallel. Okay, so what happens is the heat at one end, this is the, sorry, the temperature at one end is T1, the temperature at the other end is T2. Okay, and we know that temperatures act as if they the temperatures are analogous quantities to potentials in electrical currents. So this is similar to two resistances applied in parallel to each other. Okay, so with this in mind, for parallel resistances I can write 1 by R equilibrium is this. Okay, which gives me the equivalent thermal conductivity is K1A1 plus K2A2 by A1 plus A2. Let's look at another question. Three rods of material X and three rods of material Y are connected as shown in the figure. All the rods are identical in the length and cross-sectional area. If the end A is maintained at 60 degrees Celsius and the junction E at 10 degrees Celsius, calculate the temperature of the junctions B, C and D. The thermal conductivity of X is 0.92 CGS units and that of Y is 0.46 CGS units. So first of all, that you should, before approaching this question, the basic concept should be extremely clear to you. You should know that the resistance offered by in conduction is inversely proportional to your conductivity. Okay, so I can have my Rx is inversely proportional to 1 by Kx, my Ry is inversely proportional to 1 by Ky. Okay, or I can write this as Rx by Ry is equal to Ky by Kx. Okay, this is equal to 0.46 divided by 0.92, nothing but 2. Okay, so I can write that Rx is equal to R and R of Y, or resistance of Y, is equal to 2R. Okay, with this I can find the total resistance. So the total resistance is equal to Ry plus the effective resistance in the bridge. Okay, so it's equal to this resistance plus the resistance in this entire bridge. So how do I find this out? As we have already seen how to apply these resistances in series and parallel, I can write this as 2R, my net resistance. So I'll write this again. My R net is equal to 2R, which is in the section AB, plus this material is in parallel, so I have 2R into 4R by 2R plus 4R. Okay, because the upper section gives me 2R, the lower section gives me 4R. Okay, this is nothing but 2R plus 4 by 3 into R, which is nothing but 10 by 3 into R. Okay, and because I know that change in theta is equal to L cross R, okay, then I can easily write the theta was your temperature. Okay, So I can easily write I or current in BCE. What is BCE? It is this upper branch B, C and E. Okay, so current in this branch into 2R is equal to I into BDE into 4R, because the potential drop across them is the same. Okay, note that we are easily writing this in terms of the electrical analogs that we were having, because this behaves in the same way as we've read before. Okay, and IBCE plus IBDE is equal to the net I in the circuit or in the conductor. So if Y has a current I, okay, I have this being split into 2. Okay, this is the heat current that is there in the system. So using this I can easily write that IBCE is equal to 2 by 3 I and IBDE is equal to 1 by 3 into I. Okay, now that I have this for A and B, now let's look at the section. I'm looking at this section first. So for A and B, I have theta A minus theta B is equal to 60 degrees Celsius minus theta B. That implies 60 minus theta B is equal to the resistance there into the current there. Okay, why? Because this acts as if this was the voltage in an electrical circuit. Okay, the change in temperatures or the change in potential between the two. So this is my first equation. Okay, this is directly a consequence of this. Then I can write for BCE, for B and C, I can write theta B minus theta C is equal to 2 by 3 into I cross R. Okay, that implies theta C minus theta E is equal to 2 by 3 into R into I. For A and E also I can write this down. For A and E, I can write this down as theta A minus theta E is equal to 60 minus 10. That implies 10 by 3 into R cross I is equal to 50. Okay, therefore R into I is equal to 15. Okay, now that we have this, I can write down that theta A minus theta B minus 2 into 15 is equal to 30. Theta B is equal to 60 minus 30 is equal to 30 degree Celsius. Also theta B minus theta C is equal to 2 by 3 into 15 is equal to 10. Therefore I can write down that theta C is equal to 30 minus 10 is equal to 20 degrees Celsius. Also it is very obvious that the temperature theta at C is equal to theta D. So theta C is this and theta C is equal to theta D is equal to 20 degree Celsius. This is what was asked in the question. Another interesting question is in front of you. A cylinder of radius r is surrounded by a cylindrical shell of inner radius r and outer radius 2r. The thermal conductivity of the material of the inner cylinder is K1 and that of the outer cylinder is K2. Assuming no loss of heat, the effective thermal conductivity of the system for heat flowing along the length of the cylinder is given by what? So let me just draw this for you once. This is my cylinder. This is given to be having K1 and A1 as the area. This has the area A2 and conductivity is K2. So as you can see here that for this system I can easily write that my K EQ or equivalent is nothing but K1A1 plus K2A2 divided by A1 plus A2. Okay, let us substitute the values for different areas here. I can write K1 into pi r square plus K2 into pi into 2r square minus pi into r square, okay, divided by the sum of the two areas, so pi into 2r square. Okay, this gives me the answer as K1 plus 3K2, K1 plus 3K2 divided by 4. Let's look at another question. The thermal conductivity of brick is 1.7 and that of cement is 2.9. What thickness of cement will have the same insulation as the brick of thickness 20 centimeter? So how do I do this? First of all, since Q is equal to Ka to T1 minus T2, T1 minus T2 into small t divided by L, then for the same insulation by the brick and cement, we note that Q, A into T1 minus T2 and T do not change. Okay, thus K by L remains constant. If K by L is remaining constant, let if K1 and K2 be the thermal conductivities of a brick and cement respectively, then K1, K2, K1 be for the brick and this be for the cement. Okay, and I can call L1 and L2 be the required thicknesses. L1 be the thickness of brick and L2 is thickness of cement. Then I can easily write K1 by L1 is equal to K2 by L2, or 1.7 by 20 is equal to 2.9 by L2, which gives me L2 is nothing but 34.12 centimeter. Let us look at another question. In a 20-meter deep lake, the bottom is at a constant temperature of 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, the air temperature is constant at minus 10 degrees Celsius. The thermal conductivity of ice is 4 times that of water. Neglecting the expansion of water on freezing, the maximum thickness of ice will be which of these following 4? So let's try to do this. First of all, let me make the bottom. This be the bottom. Okay, then I can again make another surface, and then I can make another surface here. Okay, with this in picture, I'll just tell you what these things are. So let this be water. Let this be the ice forming on the water. You are given that this is 4 degrees Celsius, this is 0 degrees Celsius, and this is minus 10 degrees Celsius. Okay. So first thing that you should notice that the rate of heat flow is the same through the water and ice in steady state. Okay. So in steady state, the rate of flow is same. So let me just write this distance as x. So what will be this distance? It will be 20 minus x, because it's given it's a 20-meter deep lake. Okay, so because the rate of heat flow is the same through the water and ice, I can simply write this as Ka into 4 minus 0 divided by 20 minus x is equal to 4 Ka into 0 minus 10 degrees divided by the length x. Okay, because the rate of heat flow, which was q by t, is same for both. From these equations I can easily write that x is equal to 200 by 11 meter. So in all the problems where they ask you about ice being formed or ice on a lake problems, you just need to remember the basics. So I'll just mark this here. We next overview thermal radiation quickly. The process of the transfer of heat from one place to another without heating the intervening medium is known as radiation. Now, what this means is, if you place a heated body in vacuum, it will start to lose heat even if there is no medium surrounding it. Okay. There are several basic definitions that you will be required from this section. So we'll just quickly go through them. The first one is that of energy density. So energy density, as the name suggests, is energy per unit volume. So what this means is, it's the radiation energy of the whole wavelength. What do you mean by whole wavelength? Of whatever wavelengths of radiation are there inside the volume. So the radiation energy or you can easily skip this also, or I can call it the total the total radiation energy present in unit volume at any point in space is defined as the energy density. Okay, it will be known as U. Next is spectral energy density. So energy density per unit spectral region will be known as the spectral density. Okay, so you are basically integrating it over all the values of lambda. For each lambda you will have different energy densities, and then you integrate over all these to get the energy density. Similarly, you have the third thing, which is the absorptive power. Does this mean? So it's the ratio of the amount of radiation absorbed by a surface to the amount of radiation incident upon it is defined as the coefficient of absorption. This is A. Okay, and how can you see this? I can draw maybe a slab for you. So this is your material. Now there are incident things on it. So some radiation falls on it. Let's say that radiation is Q. Okay, there is some amount of it reflected, R reflected. Okay, there is some amount of radiation that is absorbed, Q absorbed, and the rest is transmitted, Q transmitted. Okay, so this is the absorption power. Next is spectral absorptive power. So as was the case for spectral energy density, here also you have that it is given by A lambda is equal to Q of A lambda by Q of lambda. So it is basically the ratio of the amount of radiation absorbed by the surface for a given value of a wavelength. Okay, for the specific wavelength, what is the absorptive power? Okay, note that for an ideal black body, A lambda and A both are equal to 1. Okay, this will be useful when you do the questions. Let's look at emissive power. Now, what is emissive power? It's the amount of heat radiation emitted by the unit surface of the unit area of the surface in 1 second at a particular temperature. Okay, so it's given by this expression. Okay, similarly you can define spectral emissive power. It's the emissive power for that particular wavelength. Okay, and you can just integrate all of them and get the total emissive power. Okay, so it's your total, your E lambda is nothing but your dE by d lambda. Okay, let's talk about emissivity. So this is the 7th one, call this the 8th. So emissivity, the absolute emissivity of the body is the radiation energy given out by a unit surface area of a body in unit time, corresponding to unit temperature difference with respect to the surroundings. So emissivity is equal to energy of the body at temperature T by energy of the body at of a black body at temperature that's the same temperature. Okay. Similarly, you have relative emissivity, which is nothing but emitted radiation of a gray body by emitted radiation of a ideal black body. Okay. Gray body will be denoted by GB or a general body, and ideal black body will be generated by IBB. Okay. With these quantities, there is a basic relation between them. Uh, these are three coefficients. The first one is the reflective coefficient, the second one is the absorptive coefficient, and the third one is the transmittive coefficient. Okay, so you have the reflective coefficient R is equal to QR by Q. Okay, where this is the reflected one, and this is Q. This is absorptive, and this is transmitted. You have the absorptive coefficient A, you have the transmitted coefficient T, and you have reflective coefficient plus absorptive coefficient plus transmittive coefficient is equal to 1, because there is no loss of energy here. Next, we look at the Wien's displacement law. So what does this say? It basically says that the lambda max into T for radiation is equal to constant, which is equal to, where the constant is given by 0.282 centimeter into Kelvin. This is a very important result, and I think you should remember it. We'll try to do some questions involving this. So I'll just mark this in a star. Okay. If I want to talk more about this, you should remember from here is that lambda m is inversely proportional to 1 by T. Okay. And when do we talk about lambda m's? When we try to draw the emission versus your spectral energy curve, and you see that there are emissions at different lambdas. Okay, so the maximum emission that takes place from a body is at, let's say, some lambda. That lambda will be known as lambda m. Okay, and the wavelength corresponding to the maximum emission, this wavelength, okay, is in relation to the temperature T by this quantity. Okay, this is extremely essential, and we'll look at this later. For a black body, you have your A is equal to A lambda is equal to 1, your R is equal to 0 is equal to T, and your ER is equal to 1. You should remember this. Another thing about radiation that you should remember, that the energy emitted is nothing but sigma into T to the power 4. This comes out from the Stephens Boltzmann law, or it is known as the Stephens Boltzmann law. Next thing that you should, first of all, let's take a note of these. I'll talk about black bodies a little more, but first let me just tell you about the Newton's law of cooling. So what Newton's law of cooling says is that the rate of loss of heat, which is dq by dt, is directly proportional to the excess of temperature of the body over that of the surroundings. Okay, so it's directly proportional to this, or dq by dt is proportional to theta minus theta naught, where theta is naught is the surrounding temperature. This is temperature of body. So what this means is, the more is the difference between your body and the surrounding temperature, the faster will the radiation be released, and the faster will the cooling process be. Okay. Another thing that you should remember from here is, first of all, you should take a note of this equation. Okay. The next thing that you should take a note of is that if the temperature of the body decreases from theta 1 to theta 2, okay, the temperature of the body decreases from theta 1 to theta 2, and temperature of the surroundings is theta naught, then average excess of temperature is nothing but theta 1 plus theta 2 by 2 minus theta naught. Okay, if this is the case, then I can simply use my proportional relation and my equation number 1 to easily say that theta 1 minus theta 2 by t is equal to minus k times theta 1 plus theta 2 by 2 minus theta naught. Okay, this k is a constant, and in questions you will be required to find this value of k at times. So this is your equation number 1, or this is also just a consequence of the basic proportionality relation. So you should remember this, and we'll do some questions based on this. Coming back to what I told you about in this section, this was the Stephen's law, which actually told you that uh, the amount of radiation that is emitted is proportional to T to the power 4, or the temperature to the power 4, where T is what? T is the temperature of the ideal black body in kelvins. Okay, note that here also the dimension is watt per meter square, and for the ideal black body you can find Q as well. Q is equal to sigma A T to the power 4 into time. You can even find the rate of emission of radiation for this body. Let us look at another question. Which of the following graphs shows the correct variation in intensity of heat radiations by black body and frequency at a fixed temperature? So here we use the Wien's law, which says that lambda m is directly proportional to 1 by t. Okay, I can even write this as my mu m is directly proportional to t. So as the temperature of the body increases, the frequency corresponding to the maximum energy in radiation, this thing, it increases. Also area under the curve should be equal to area under the curve should be equal to integral of E dot d lambda, E for a specific lambda, into d lambda. Okay, now this is also proportional to integral of E specific value of mu d mu, so is proportional to t to the power 4. Okay, so in this case you have both A and D giving you the right answers. Let us take a look at another question. If a liquid takes 30 seconds in cooling from 80 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius and 70 seconds in cooling from 60 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius, then find the room temperature. So this is a question from Newton's law of cooling. So let's just remember what the equation was and write it down. So I have theta 1 minus theta 2 divided by t is equal to some k times theta 1 plus theta 2 by 2 plus theta naught. Okay, so in the first case, what are the different values that I have? I have my theta 1 to be equal to 80, or the initial temperature. My final temperature after cooling is 70. So theta 1 is 80, theta 2 is 70, and it takes 70 seconds for this to it takes 30 seconds for this cooling to happen. I can write this down as some k into 80 plus 70 by 2 plus minus theta. This was minus theta naught. Okay, so I can write this down as minus theta naught. Theta naught is the final temperature or the temperature of the room. Okay, similarly I can write for the second case as well. For the second case, what do I have? I have 60 minus 50 divided by 70 is equal to k times 60 plus 50 by 2 minus theta naught. From the first equation, I can reduce this equation down to 1 by 3 is equal to k times 75 minus theta naught. Also 1 by 7 is equal to k times 55 minus theta naught. This is my equation number 1. This is my equation number 2. if I just equate, if I take the equation number 1 and divide it by equation number 2, I'll get 7 by 3 is equal to 75 minus theta naught by 55 minus theta naught. Okay, that implies 75 minus theta naught divided by 55 minus theta naught. Sorry, I can simplify this as if I multiply it, I'll get 385 minus 7 theta naught is equal to 75 into 3 is 225 minus 3 theta naught, which will give me that theta naught is nothing but 160 by 4 is equal to 40 degree Celsius. So my room temperature is nothing but 40 degree Celsius. Next, we briefly talk about calorimetry. When a hot body is put in contact with a cold one, the former gets colder and the latter gets warmer. Okay. From this observation, it is natural to conclude that a certain quantity of heat has passed from the hot body to the cold body. So first of all, I'll tell you about some basic things. One is, what is a calorie? A calorie is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So it is amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, this is the unit that is generally used when we talk about heat, and there are other units as well such as international calorie, kilocalorie, British thermal unit, or BTUs. Okay, but you shouldn't worry about these things that much. So with calorie out of the question, let's talk about what is specific heat. Specific heat will be denoted by either S or C in the questions. Okay, so it is the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of unit mass of that substance by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so for example, when we were talking about calories, it was the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, now for specific heat, it is nothing but the amount of, I'll just use the same thing, it is the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of unit mass of that substance. Okay, so it is the energy required to raise the temperature of unit mass of that substance by 1 degree Celsius or by 1 Kelvin. Okay, with specific heat out, first of all, let me see if I have a relation between the specific heat and the heat flow through the system. So if the temperature of my substance is changing from T to T plus delta T, okay, I'll just see it here. So if the temperature of, let's say this is a mass M of the body, its temperature changes from T to T plus delta T, okay, when it exchanges an amount of heat dq with its surroundings, then you can define your specific heat to be 1 by m into dq by dt. Okay, so this is your formula for specific heat. Heat have written right over here. Okay, then you have something known as the molar heat capacity. It is the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 mole of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. So you have molar heat capacity, okay, and denoted by a capital C at times. Okay, so here what do you have? You have your C is equal to m by m into dq by dt, which is nothing but 1 by mu into dq by dt, where mu is the number of moles of the substance. Okay. Then you have things such as the thermal capacity, which is the mass into specific heat. You have a quantity known as the water equivalent of a body. So I'll just write this because sometimes in the questions they ask you about the water equivalent. So water equivalent of a body. What is this? It is the mass of water having the same thermal capacity as the body. Mass of water having the same thermal capacity, okay, as your original body, as the body. Okay, so it is the mass of water having the same thermal capacity as the body. We'll call it as the water equivalent. And next we move on to latent heat or hidden heat. So when a state of the body changes, for example from liquid to solid or solid to liquid or liquid to gas, so whenever the state of the body is changing, uh, this takes place at a constant temperature. Okay, so while the state is changing, the temperature of the substance does not vary. Okay, and at this point some heat is released or some heat is absorbed. So that heat released or absorbed during the change of state is known as latent heat, which will be denoted as L. Okay, so if heat is absorbed, then solid converts into a liquid at the melting point, or liquid converts into a vapor. And if heat is released, then liquid converts into solid or vapor converts into a liquid. So there are two or three types of latent heats. So I'll just mark them. Let's talk about them separately. So there can be latent heat of fusion, latent heat, latent heat of fusion. Okay, it is the quantity of heat required to change 1 kg mass from solid to liquid. Okay, so it's for solid to liquid transition. Similarly, you have latent heat of vaporization. It is the quantity of heat required to change 1 kg mass from liquid to vapor. Okay, in all these cases, it is the amount of heat to change 1 kg mass of the initial quantity. Okay, the changing of states can be through melting, boiling, or evaporation. You can even have sublimation, where there is a direct conversion of a solid to a vapor state. You have condensation, in the process in which the gaseous or vapor state condenses to a liquid state. Okay, there are other relations as well, but those are not essential for your paper. Next, we look at what is the phase of a substance. So the phase of a substance is defined as its form, which is homogeneous, physically distinct, and mechanically separable from the other forms of that substance. Similarly, you can write a phase diagram. A phase diagram will be a graph in which you have pressure and along the y-axis and temperature along the x-axis. So one of the phase diagrams that sometimes is asked in the paper is that of water. Okay, so you have pressure here, you have your temperature here, and the phase diagram is something like this. Okay, the different regions are this region is liquid. Okay, this region is vapor, and this region is solid. Also note that this point is called the triple point of water. Okay, at the triple point, solid, liquid, and vapor phases are all existing at equilibrium. This is the only thing that you need to remember from here, because sometimes they give you a question, then they say triple point of water is this much, and then you need to evaluate several things. Okay, with this in mind, uh, the principles of calorimetry are quite clear. What you really have is, if for any mixture, okay, uh, we bring in something known as the law of mixtures, which says that when two bodies at different temperatures are mixed, heat will be transferred from one body at a higher temperature to a body at the lower temperature till they acquire the same temperature. Okay, so what this says is, the body at the higher temperature will release some heat, while the body at the lower temperature will absorb the same heat. So the basic principle of calorimetry is heat absorbed is equal to heat lost. Okay, this is the entire principle of calorimetry. When you mix two substances or keep two substances close by or in contact, okay, this will always be the case. And also note that the temperature of the mixture T, for example, if there was a hot body TH, there was a cold body TC, when you mix these two or place them in contact, okay, they will attain a final temperature, let's say T. This temperature will always be greater than or equal to your lower temperature, and will always be lesser than or equal to your higher temperature. Okay, we'll do several problems to see these in action. Let's look at another question. Steam at 100 degrees Celsius is passed into 1.1 kg of water contained in a calorimeter of water equivalent 0.02 kg at 15 degrees Celsius till the temperature of the calorimeter and its contents rises to 80 degrees Celsius. What is the mass of the steam condenser when you're given the latent heat of steam as 536 calorie per gram? Now, how do you approach this question? Let me just write down the heat required by both calorimeter plus water system, and noted by Q is equal to M1 into C1 plus M2 into C2 into delta theta. Okay, if I just substitute the values, my mass here is 0.02. Okay, and then I'll get a mass into C1 is 0.02, and this is equal to 1.1 into 1 for water, uh, into delta theta, it is 80 minus 15. Okay, so what you should note is, first of all, this is what your this is the mass of the water that you're having in kgs. Okay, and you're multiplying it with the specific heat of water, that is equal to 1. Okay, next, what is the when you talk about water equivalent, so you just write this down as 0.02 into C1. C1 is again equal to 1, so you only have 0.02. Okay, and the temperature difference is already given to you, so this turns out to be 72.8 kilocalories. Okay, now let's see the next thing. If M is the mass of steam condensed, if I say that M is the mass of steam condensed, then what do we have? Then the heat given by the steam, the heat given by the steam is m into latent heat plus mc delta theta. Okay, so what is this equal to? M into 536 plus m into c is 1 into delta theta is 100 minus 80. Okay, substitute the value, I'll get 556 m. Therefore 556 m is equal to, how much was the heat that I got from here? 72.8. 72.8. Okay, using this I can get, therefore my mass of steam condensed is nothing but m is equal to 72.8 divided by 556 is equal to 0.130 kg. Let's look at a quick question. A metal ball of mass 0.1 kg is heated up to 500 degrees Celsius and dropped into a vessel of heat capacity 800 joules per Kelvin and containing 0.5 kg water. The initial temperature of water and vessel is 30 degrees Celsius. What is the approximate percentage increment in the temperature of the water? So let me assume that the final temperature be equal to some T degrees Celsius. Okay, so heat lost is equal to the heat gained by principle of calorimetry, nothing but ms delta T. Okay, that implies mb sb delta tb is equal to mw sw delta tw. Okay, so I have 0.1 into 400 into 500 minus t is nothing but 0.5 to 4200 into t minus 30 plus 800 into t minus 30. Okay, I can simply write this as 40 into 500 minus t is equal to t minus 30 into 2100 plus 800. Okay, which gives me that 20,000 plus 30 into 2900 is equal to T into 2940. Thus, if I just calculate change in temperature by temperature 200, it's 6.4 divided by 30 into 100, which is similar to 21%. Okay. And the closest answer in the questions is 20 degrees.